Are you a Wealthbox user and you're currently building out an onboarding workflow, or maybe you tried in the past and haven't had any success? Well, in today's video, we're going to be going over specifically how to build out an onboarding workflow whenever you're opening up new accounts for your new clients coming into the firm. Hey, it's Matthew. If you're looking to build workflows that actually work and help your firm scale and grow, please feel free to grab your copy of Mastering Strategies to Avoid the RA Disaster. The link will be in the description below. And if you're serious about building workflows, processes, and automations for your firm, let's connect. Schedule an intro call with us using the link in our description below, and we'd be more than happy to get to know you and your firm. All right, now back to the video. So we're currently in Wealthbox right now, and we've built out a sample workflow just to show you what we've seen work for a lot of firms here. And to start off, the workflow name, we just named it for onboarding, and we did account opening for new clients. And the reason why we're doing it in this specific naming convention is because sometimes we see firms having multiple onboarding workflows, just like you have multiple prospecting workflows. So to give you an example of what that looks like here, towards the description down below, what we have is essentially a way to categorize the workflows you should be building out for your firm. And then also here, like we talked about, there is another onboarding type of workflow. This one's more specifically for new client onboarding, anything going beyond setting up the new client to the firm versus like opening up their account. So here is all the steps that we have built out here, and we get it. There is a lot of steps to onboard a new client, but we're going to walk you through these steps at a very high level. And if you want to actually get this workflow inside of your Wealthbox CRM, then there's going to be a link down in the description that you can click on, fill in some information, and then we'll actually upload that workflow into your Wealthbox account within 1 week. So let's go ahead and talk about these steps in this actual workflow here. Whenever you're opening up a new account for a client, typically you're going to have a couple of different major phases that we like to call them when you're opening up accounts. So this first one that we have here is going to be when you're actually doing the pre-account opening checklist. Like you're kind of like gathering data, making sure that everything that you've done before actually sending out paperwork is being complete. So let's go into the workflow step here itself. So we just named it pre-account opening, and then we made this as the start of the workflow. So anytime a advisor, a client service associate, someone on your team is launching this workflow, this step will be assigned that same day. So we have it assigned to our client service associate, and this is a specific contact role that we built out inside of our CRM. Other contact roles that we built out are associate advisor, and then we didn't have any teams built out for this, but if you have a team of client service associates or a team of associate advisors that support this role and this type of function in your firm, then we suggest creating a team in your customizations, and you would be able to do that and then actually assign the team instead of a contact role. But for the purposes of this video, we'll make sure that our contact roles are going to be assigned to the client service associate whenever we're opening up new accounts. So we'll go into the actual description here. So what we've done is we've actually pointed over, because there's a couple of subtasks that we have in this workflow step that we want to complete as our like initial checklist. So below that, you'll see this in all of the workflow steps. We just indicated all of the details in this workflow step that should be put into the workflow. If it doesn't transfer over correctly, you still have this as a kind of like a breakdown. So once you review this and you're using it for your firm, you can delete this out and just keep the description here. So let's actually go into the workflow subtask here. So we're going to do that whenever we're editing a workflow by clicking this first button that says View Subtasks. And then right here, you see this is all the same information that we've had in that previous page when we're talking about the workflow step. Now we can actually have these little check boxes under a workflow step to complete, and then we can move forward along our process. So the first one here is Wealthbox workflow description, review accounts to be open. So this is actually pointing back to our description that we have above here. So what we've done is kind of built out a basic intake form. So whoever launches this this workflow, they should have the responsibility of filling out how many accounts we're actually opening, the account types, how much we're transferring, where those funds are coming from, essentially to serve as a guideline as you're working through this workflow so that information doesn't get lost. So we'll go back into our subtask here, and then we'll go back to this specific subtask. So we're making sure that we put in some pretty detailed information into the description, and we're making this assigned to, or the due date, the same day as the workflow step. So just to break that down, subtasks can actually have different due dates versus the actual workflow step. So for most reasons, or most times, we always suggest that firms should set this as the same day as when the actual workflow step is due, and we also like to make it assigned to the same individual. So the workflow is assigned to the step assignee, and if we look in the workflow step, the assigned to is the client service associate. So they're the one that's going to get the responsibility to actually be checking to review the accounts. Which ones need to be open, which ones do I need to generate paperwork for. Next here, we have our contact details within Wealthbox, and we're just wanting to confirm that information. So actually, in this description, what we're doing is pointing to another cool Wealthbox feature called an action button. And that action button is going to be called Contact Details Confirm New Client Information. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to that action button down below here, and we are going to go ahead and edit it, and we can actually pull in any of the information that we've already filled out on a Wealthbox contact, and we can also add new fields. So if we wanted the background information, we can always pull that in. If we wanted to get rid of it, we could always remove it. But essentially, this is just a basic list of the information you're going to need to open up an account. So essentially, it serves as a check to make sure that you have all of the relevant information. And if we don't have all the information to open up the new accounts, we actually have that indicated here in the last part of that subtask. So we actually have an email template to send out to the client to request new information that we're missing. So that, again, is going to be an action button here. So email request new client information. So if I pull that up, and if we're working through a workflow step, it'll actually show me if I want to do this variable here. So if we have the new client's nickname, or if we don't, then it'll default to their first name. And we just put some basic information here. This list can vary from firm to firm. So you may be missing an email address. Maybe you're actually missing their social security number because you don't have that yet. And if you want to get that before they're actually presented with their e-signature or their physical paperwork they need to sign, you can always include that here when you're actually prepping the paperwork and trying to get that ready for the client. Also, if you're missing more relevant information like account statements, we can always request that. But again, this serves as a template email, just something you can quickly fire off with minimal edits, so you can actually customize it and then actually keep that process going for your CSA. And then our last subtask here is going to be for preparing new account opening documents. So, once we've actually gotten all the information we need back from the client, we actually may need to request that information, and we'll show you a follow-up process in the next workflow step. But essentially, reviewing information, making sure we have all the information, we should be able to start prepping the paperwork. And even if we don't have all the information, we're going to be really just starting that process. It's just a reminder to actually get that in the works. So once all of these subtasks are done, we have two workflow step outcomes. So that first one is going to be actually making sure, hey, like we have everything we need. What we need to do next is to then actually request a signature. And if we don't have all the information, then we're going to go into a follow-up process here. So we have our pre-account opening follow-up number 1 for any missing documents or information we need to request from them. And that's going to actually happen 2 weekdays after we complete the previous step and send that email request out to the client for that information. And in the description here, we're actually pointing over to one of those action buttons in Wealthbox to actually send a follow-up email, which again is already pre-templated for us in our firm. Same idea, we're going to pull the contact nickname if they have one. If not, then we'll go ahead and just send their first name. And again, very, very general email, just trying to touch them and say, hey, we sent this request out a couple days ago. Is there anything that we can do to support you on our end? If not, and you haven't heard back from them, we have a couple of outcomes here. So the first one is we've already sent the follow-up. So we're going to go into follow-up number 2 in a couple days. And actually, we did get that information back from the client as our second outcome here. So if we need to follow up again, same idea as this first one, we have our email action button inside of the workflow step. And what we also have are a couple of outcomes, or actually just one outcome here. So that one outcome, by this time, the client should already get us this information. If not, this is where we're going to push the task in the future. And again, if you want more specific information on these workflow steps, again, there's a link down in the description. Sign up for it. We're going to put this workflow directly inside of your Wealthbox account. So after we have done our follow-up process here and we've actually gotten the information to send out the whether e-signature or physical signature paperwork out, we are going to go into our account opening signature request process. So whenever we have multiple things that have to happen at some point, we always like to build them out as subtasks. And directly in the workflow step, we are going to point over to making sure that it's very clear that we need to go to the subtasks in this workflow step. So I'm going to go to those workflow subtasks. And in here, you can see there's a couple of different things we need to do. So within our signature platform, whether you use DocuSign, Google Sign, any digital e-signature platform, you're going to want to edit the workflow here and actually add your own signing platform just to customize it to how your firm works. And in the description here, we've basically just said, once we've actually had everything, once we prep the paperwork, we need to go ahead and upload that prep paperwork to that, again, DocuSign, Google Signature, or any other platform you're using so we can request that they sign it. And then next, we have a canned email template here. So again, we have that Wealthbox action button to go ahead and send them that pre-templated email. And we'll show you what that looks like. So pretty standard for an onboarding email. We just want to confirm with them that the paperwork has been sent via e-signature or via paper signature if it needs to be wet signed. And then any other firm documents we need to include, like your asset management agreements, your investment management agreements, fee disclosures, privacy disclosure, ADVs, really just anything you need to include. Again, customize this portion to how your firm works and what compliance documents you need to input when you're doing this portion of onboarding. And then we just have one outcome here. So this is complete. We're going to go into a follow-up process here. And that, again, same idea. Follow-up is going to happen 2 weekdays after. So we're just going to really keep a close eye on this. We want to make sure this happens super quickly. So we give the client or the new client 2 weekdays to go ahead and sign that paperwork. 2 outcomes here. If they have completed it, we'll go on to our next phase. But if not, then we have our follow-up number 2. Follow-up number 2. Again, has that email action just to go ahead and send them a pre-templated email saying, hey, we're just checking in on you. Want to make sure you got this. Is there anything that we can do to assist on our side? And again, if you want the details, you can pause it and try to get this. Or again, just sign up in the description below. We have a free guide and it's going to populate this workflow directly inside of your CRM. Our next phase here is essentially going to be after we have received the signatures, we need to do a couple of things. We need to go ahead and save those documents into our own server, whether it's OneDrive, ShareFile, Google Drive, Box, anything else. So again, customize this to how your firm works and how whatever filing system you use. And then next, we just want to confirm back with the client that we have already received this, just to keep them in the loop. We just want to make sure that communication is open, and it's a lot easier to manage now since it's in a workflow step and we're actually telling someone what to do. So again, a huge point here, what we hear a lot of firms doing is they're trying to manage this process through a task. And nothing wrong if your team understands how to do things, but whenever you're looking to make that next hire, let's say hire number 2 for a CSA, and you want them to take over onboarding, that information lives with the team member and not in a process like a workflow. So we advise on starting to build out these workflows here. So after this is done, again, we have our email action item here directly in Wealthbox. We're going to complete this step. And then we're going to go into a phase of making sure that funding has happened for this new account. So this is more so of like something we have to check on our side, check the custodial platform, where the account is being opened and funded. And essentially we have 2 outcomes in this workflow step. So that first one is going to be saying, hey, you know what? It has not been funded yet, this new account, or yes, it has been funded. So if it has been funded, we'll move along in the workflow. But if it has not been funded, then we're essentially just going to restart the step so that we can check back on this every 3 weekdays. So essentially this is just going to make sure our team is accountable. We're actually instead of manually pushing the task forward, we're actually setting a guideline here to say, hey, if it's Monday and I checked on it and the account hasn't been funded, I'm going to check in 3 weekdays. And then again, once that's been completed, we can actually complete this step here and then finally go into our final checklist of account opening. So pointing over to the subtask here because we got a couple of things to do. So for our firm, the only 2 things that we need to do whenever we open up and fund a new account for a new client is send them an email confirmation. Just want to make sure that the transfer has happened. They are in the loop, and I'll show you what that email pre-templated one looks like. And then finally, what we're going to do is actually update accounts on our financial planning software and any other tools that you need to or softwares you need to. So this is, again, just a checklist of things, a final checklist of things that we need to complete once an account has been opened and funded. So once that's complete, workflow complete, account has been open. So you may be thinking to yourself that there are a lot of other things that we missed, like onboarding, like rebalancing, maybe having that first meeting with the client to discuss their investments and their holdings currently. Those are a lot of the times things that we hear we need to build another workflow or another process because that follows a meeting, and we need to get the client's buy-in before we actually rebalance or trade on their accounts. So that'll be a good idea to kind of brainstorm with your team, think about, and really just see, well, how many workflows should we build and what are the right workflows to build? And consult with your team, think about that. If you're still having trouble doing that, please let us know. Schedule an intro call with us. We can definitely help in brainstorming with you what types of workflows your firm needs. And again, if you do want to grab this workflow, go down in the description because we have a link here. Just sign up, and then we'll go ahead and put that workflow into your Wealthbox account within 1 week.